I'm excited about this episode of the Elite Recruiter podcast because I have my special guest, Will McGhee, to talk about product marketing versus solution marketing. And Will is the founder of Recruiting with Dynamite. And here's one of the things what I'm excited about Will coming on and sharing with you guys. For over a decade, he has been a consistent big biller. And when I talk about a big biller, 500K or more every single year consistently for a decade. So he knows what he's talking about. And as you guys can feel it out there, the world of recruiting is changing. You could just feel it every day. And Will's going to talk about how to stay ahead of the game, how to use product marketing and solution marketing to get ahead. So Will, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Ben. Happy to be here, man.
So as we get started every time, how did you end up in this wonderful world of recruiting?
Whew. Oh man. I kind of fell into it. I mean, I don't think anybody's been in this world and was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a recruiter when I grow up." I know only one person that's done it. I always talk about it. It's literally the only person I've ever met that was like, "I want to be an agency recruiter." But I was in sales. Uh, I did just take a step back. My parents were always like entrepreneurial. So my dad was an insurance salesperson. My mom was or is a real estate broker. I got my real estate license at 18. I love technology. I tried to find some sort of like mix between real estate and tech. So I found myself in co-location, which if you guys don't know what that is, it's space, power, cooling for server farms and connectivity, right? So I worked at a company called CoreSite. Co-location was cool. CoreSite was fun. It's just like, what I realized was it was very, very like stuffy, like old school, old money, real estate plays. And like, there were certain things that were happening in the industry that I wasn't really excited about. And, it just wasn't my thing. So, I was taking the train from Orange County every day to LA, to Los Angeles. And I had a train friend who basically was like, yeah, my boyfriend is in recruiting. I think you'd be great at it. You should talk to him. It's like, what's recruiting? um, and, she was like, yeah, just talk to him. So I ended up talking to him. And we're good friends now. And he introduced me into cybercoders. And at the time, cybercoders was about 120, 130 people. They'd been around for about 8 or 9 years. And I was just blown away, right? Like the earning potential, the Wolf of Wall Street had come out like or is about to come out, right? Like in a year or two. And I remember like being there and I was like, wow, like cybercoders is kind of like Wolf of Wall Street. It's like, it was wild. Like we threw like crazy parties. It was a crazy place to be at the time. And I immediately fell in love with the industry, right? It was a lot of fun. You're helping people, you're making a lot of money. And, I was like 24 at the time, 25, just out of college, making six figures. Like none of my friends were doing that. Right. And I just quickly like got onto it and it just kind of fit into everything I liked, which was like psychology. And, the thing I liked about like real estate was like, you always had something new to sell. And I kind of felt like the same way where it was, kind of that feeling of like, oh, well, it felt like you're being a middleman, if you will. So it was good. I felt there was a lot of correlation. So that's how I fell in recruiting. And ever since I've been in it. So.
And then talk about your track from cybercoders to where you are now.
Okay. So cybercoders started 2012. And I was broke. I was like, I had sold my car. This is how broke I was. So I was so broke. I had to sell my car to make ends meet. And then I borrowed one of my mom's cars. She had like another car that she could let me borrow for a little while. And like, it was bad. It was like 2000, so it was right out of like the 2008 recession. So, things were starting to pick back up, but I was selling cheesecakes at Costco, man. Like it was bad. So I got into cybercoders. And Yeah, it was like it was good the first 6 months, but it was really hard for me to I had a slow start, and finally, like, I took it seriously and I just committed, and I think I was, like, playing around a lot, I was partying a lot at the time, and, um, I just said, "You know, screw it, like, I wanna make money." I had, like, this, like, chip on my shoulder because I had a girl who's now my wife, who was just kinda, like, denying me, like, she was like, "No, I don't wanna talk to you, like, you're a scrub." So, so I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna show you," like, so I just, like, blew it up, put a bunch of activity in, did, like my first year, I did about 575 or something like 600. And then, made rookie of the quarter once or twice and then did really good. Second year, took my foot off the gas a little bit, but I did like three something. And then, third year did like seven something around there. So did really well, moved up to like a lead position and I didn't really want to I didn't like the kind of the direction that cybercoders was going. Like cybercoders was going and there's no fault to it. Like cybercoders is a business unit. It's general, it's broad. It was growing rapidly, right? We went from 100 people to like 500 people really quickly. But the idea was like just get as much out there as possible, pull in as many opportunities as possible. Um, utilize the database. And at that time, there wasn't really a lot of like technology around recruiting. So like cybercoders had this really cool like proprietary system that allowed you to do deals really fast. And I knew I wanted something more like relationship driven stuff. So I moved out of cybercoders year 4. I went to a company called Console. They were starting up a branch out in Santa Monica. And that was really cool because like from there, I actually learned really like deep specialization recruiting. Like I was always kind of like a generalist, like at cybercoders, you're kind of just going after whatever's available, like whatever's hot in the market. And then there it was like, focus on a niche, go after it. Like there was Magento and, you know, uh, uh, AI and, autonomous driving, like kind of plays that were there. And I came in as a director of business development. So I helped build out like a pipeline of business. I wasn't on a producing desk there. It was more of just like coaching and growing people. And, and then I found Tima. Tima was really cool because it kind of gave me this opportunity to expand my entrepreneurial spirit without having to take a big risk. So you go in and you basically start up your own business, your own LLC, and you kind of have a franchise model. And it was a great network of recruiters that allowed you to tap into different resources. You could be a full desk recruiter if you wanted to, or half desk, whatever you wanted to do. But really great experience that kind of led me to A Talent. And A Talent now is, um, you know, I had a brief stint at another startup recruiting firm that's not worth mentioning. But the A Talent allowed me to, take a lot of what I had learned over the years and like things I had theorized about, like marketing efforts and advertising and using content to drive traffic to not just your roles, but to bring in clients and have this kind of differentiation using automation. I was really big into like tools. I'm a lazy guy. So just so you know, I'm like really lazy and I use it as like kind of my superpower because I'm so lazy that I want to get everything done as quickly as possible. So I really emphasize on like automation and like trying to, make myself superhuman, if you will, without losing personalization and without losing connectivity. And so, um, that is like big for me. And I just did that I tried to leverage as much automation or leverage as I possibly could in an A Talent. And it was great because we were, even though we started 2 months before the pandemic, like we were still able to do about 1.5 million in about 2.5, 3 years. So,
I love that. And that turned into recruiting with dynamite.
yeah. So like I've always had this like operations training, automation, like kind of mind and marketing mind, right? And I knew I always wanted to do something in marketing and coaching and growing other recruiters because I love this space and I think there's a lot of room for it. And there's just not a lot of people that are actually teaching and growing other recruiters, which is why I like your podcast so much, is because you're bringing on people and express and like letting them share their experience. And I think there's a lot of different ones, and I think recruiters just don't have that outlet. So, um, and now that it's growing, it's really cool. So, um, yeah, recruiting with Dynamite kind of was like was always in the back of my mind, but at the end of 2022, I was like, it's time to just like do something I'm really excited about and I'm like really passionate about, and like just follow my why and like my woo, as one of my mentors says. Like I really wanted to like do something different. And so I started the newsletter, just like, hey, like let's see what happens. And then through the newsletter, I was able to start a consultation. The consultation turned into a cohort, and the cohort now, is turning into a digital course, and we're now like, it's like growing, and it's really cool. Like, and I always laugh because I'm like, I have not even like my website just launched, like it just dropped. So in 7 months, like I haven't even had a website. It's just been going so fast, and like we've been making money, and like I haven't done any direct emailing. I haven't done any like messaging. It's just like all organic, and I'm like, I don't have enough time, and I'm like kind of figuring out like how do I like manage this. So it's been a like good experiment because it's allowed me to really follow my passion, which is like this marketing, operations, automation side of things. So it's cool.
All right. That is awesome. Great story and how you got into the space, where you're going. And I mean, kind of funny thing talking about a website. I think it took me 80 episodes to get a website for the Elite Recruiter podcast. I was like, I guess you need a website for this stuff. I don't know. I just keep working. I have interviews. I post them. People like find it. I have no clue how people find it. But anyways, that's another topic for another day. All right. The one thing everybody's been asking about, and I get the most feedback on, how do you bring in new clients? And it's going to talk about like the different ways of marketing. So
Yeah,
let's start.
I think like a lot of people kind of fall into a trap of looking at their business development efforts as like a kind of one-sided thing, right? They're very much focused on what worked before, has worked in the past, and a lot of recruiters haven't evolved, right? And then that's kind of like no fault to their own, because I think a lot of times when we look at how do we go to market, when we started off in recruiting, you were put on a desk and told, hey, here's a really great .NET developer. I want you to go market this person to all the .NET shops. Or here's a great accountant. I want you to go market all the accountants, accounting firms, or companies that need accountants in the area, right? And you never told really why you were doing that, or like what this person did, or what kind of value these roles end up being for the company. And it's just like, here's a hot market. And usually that's being done by somebody who was a biller that moved into a management role and doesn't really have management experience. They found a hot market, they billed really well for a couple years, and then they got out and they now are managing people. You're like, okay, great. Like, you're not teaching me anything. And then the founder is probably a biller who did really well and now is like, oh, I could do this, and started his own company, or her own company. Right. And so it's like, so you just kind of like, you're kind of going like this old school mentality of just like hit the numbers, hit the books. And I think the market as entirety has changed, like things like social media, AI, automation, like email marketing. They've all shifted in a direction I think a lot of recruiters are struggling to adapt to right now, because when it's hot and we're used to that, we get used to these like hot markets, like in tech, for example, in 2021, you could literally put out whatever message you wanted to. Like, it did not matter. You put out a message and you could get clients. And that's not the case today, right? And so you're not really evaluating, how you're going to market anymore. And you're wondering why things aren't working. So today, I think the difference is you really need to look at how you're going to market and what your offering is, your total offering is. And I believe that if you're going to focus on product marketing, which is really candidate based marketing, So MPC, like your product is your inventory of candidates. So you have to have a really good inventory of candidates. You have to be focused on a very specific niche. Or, and let's put it this way. I'm not big on niching, Ben. I know a lot of people say niche, niche, niche. I think you need to niche and understand a market, but it doesn't mean you have to stay in that market. I think the overly niching is what is getting people into trouble right now because they're not adapting to where the money's going, right? So one of the big things I talk about is, find where the money's going first, right? So find the industry that's hot, find a position within that industry that is just as hot or it has some sort of heat in it, and it's hard to find, but there's candidates available. Like what you don't want to do is go into space exploration, for example, and go try and find astronauts. Like that's not the thing that you're going to do because there's just not enough people. You need to validate your market. But if space exploration is getting funding right now and you're an accountant recruiter, then like go find accountants for space exploration companies, right? So, and then lastly, you need to have a great MPC or great candidate pool that fits into that market with those type of titles. So if you do that, your business development efforts are going to go on, like they're going to be on fire. And that's the 30% fee agreement. Yeah. Like I've got great candidates. Do you want to look at this? Because this person fits a particular mold of what you're looking for. Now, the other part of that is if you don't understand your market and you don't know what needs this person is actually going to fulfill, then you're fighting an uphill battle because, yeah, there's candidates everywhere, right? But if you have those three components and understand where exactly that candidate's going to fit in and what kind of transformation that candidate's going to do for your client, then you're able to, have a better messaging, better content creation, just literally better. Everything becomes better and you're able to drive a business development machine. So that's the product MPC way. And that's the most like traditional way that I think a lot of people have kind of faltered away from and just looked at what's the experience of this candidate. I'm going to send them, like I have an accountant that has great, big four experience and worked at, a large, multinational Series C company. I'm going to send them out to all the tech companies in the country. And it's like, but does that person fit, right? Like, is that the right person for a Series A company or let's say an enterprise company? Like those two types of companies have very different needs and you need to be able to address those things. So that's the product side.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
No, that was and we'll probably do a little bit of a deep dive on the product side, but so you've talked about product, you've talked about solution marketing. What is solution marketing?
So like a lot of recruiters, so Lavender, is has some of my favorite content creators right now on sales marketing and emailing, right? Lavender talks about, they had this, or I should say, they had this game show segment with Will Atkin and another one of their marketing team members. And that segment basically said, is it AI or is it human, right? These emails. And one of the emails was an AI written recruiting email. And the recruiting email goes, yeah, we're this kind of company. We handle these types of roles and we're, best in class. And we've got a great pool of candidates that can fit your yada, yada, yada. Right. So like, that's a solution. You're not even selling you're not really even selling the candidate. You're selling like the company and what they can provide as far as like the company ends up being the hero versus the candidate being the hero or the solution, right? So a lot of times I think when we talk about company or when we talk about what we can do or history or case studies or whatever, you're really trying to sell a solution. Like that's what you're really trying to sell. And so that solution sells has very different, like you're using different needs and desire states, like versus in product. Product, you can talk about like literally cost. You can talk about time and quality. With solutions, you're talking more about efficiency and effectiveness and things like that. And so if you're going to go solution oriented, like you have to have something that differentiates. And if you're not differentiated, then you're really not a solution. And it also has to, that differentiation specifically, I should say this, you have to have something that differentiates and it hits a specific need for a very specific audience. So let's say like you are a CFO or accounting recruiting firm. Your solution should be around the needs and wants of that CFO. And then on top of that, you probably aren't selling on a commission base, like a fee percentage. We should start looking at how do you sell on a retainer or a consultation service that allows you to have a recurring revenue or a fixed cost that allows you to consult and create services for that person. So that's the solution, right? You're creating a solution for that specific hiring manager, that specific team. So having a solution-based marketing system is very different, and there's not a whole lot of differential plays that we have in recruiting now. Like you can't say you have a great tech stack. You can't talk about AI. You can't talk about database. Like everyone has that now. So your solution has to really, really, really fit the need of your target market. And it has to be really catered to that specific hiring manager or team.
I'd love for you to maybe give the listeners some ideas and some examples of some solution
Yeah.
based marketing. I will say, like, I love the idea of the way that you're talking about it, and I've never thought about this.
Mm.
But like, we actually do work we're in the GovCon space. So within government contracting, there's a lot of proposals, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And there's many times we've come in and we're not writing the proposal, but we're talking about, we actually get paid to come and talk about what the market looks like to help with teams winning proposal.
Yeah.
So
That's funny. I was actually going to use government contract as an example because one of our clients does government contract as well. And so that was literally, we sat down and looked at what is his positioning, how is he coming at the market, and he was like, I'm not. First of all, he goes, Will, I'm a cold caller. I cold call all the time. And I go, I've not cold called in 7 years. 7 years I haven't cold called, so I don't cold call, and I warm call. Right, I make great introductions. I have good in LinkedIn interactions. I pull candidate or clients and candidates in. I don't push so much, right? So, and that's good for me. Like it might not work for a larger organization, just as an FYI, because it's just different. As an individual, I can bill 500K and be happy, right? But so he goes, yeah, I'm cold calling. I'm not getting anywhere. And I go, okay, like let's look at what your offering is. Are you product or solution? And he's like, well, I've got this stuff. And he's telling me all about like the services part. And I'm like, dude, you're a solution guy. So that's cool. Like, let's stick with solution. And if your solution, let's like pivot your messaging. So what specifically are you doing? Like, how is this fitting the needs for your client? What are some of the benefits of having someone who has like your kind of licensing? Because this person has the ability to really like check and identify clearance, like, right. And a lot of people say they have clearance, but it might be expiring, or, they haven't had it in a while or whatever it is. So he's able to like create these like really unique solutions that are very specific to government contracts and DoD clearance stuff. And so it's like, dude, let's just talk about that and how it's going to help win more business. Right. So that's like one of my favorite examples, because he ended up going, like, we created a 2-sentence message. I actually created a longer message. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit more verbose. I don't know if you can tell, I'm a very verbose person, but it's very hard for me to shrink things down. So I'm trying to shrink it down. And then I give him my piece, and then he takes it and he just makes a 2-sentence message, and he starts going to LinkedIn, and he doesn't even follow the rest of the sequence. Like, he's just first message out. He wins like 185K in business in his first 2 weeks. And I'm like, there you go. Right. So he found a very specific market. He found a very specific hiring manager, or need that needed to be filled, and a pain point that they were dealing with, and it happened to be in the recruiting and HR function of it, and he was able to capitalize on it because he talked about winning more business and how it was going to help them win more proposals, knowing that they had this, recruiting arm that could partner up with them essentially. And then it was all about creating an offering right from there. So, is it monthly? Is it, flat fee per hire? Is it success based or whatever it is? But again, you're not coming at it in that case, like it's harder. It's not that you can't do it. I just wouldn't suggest it. I think it's better that you have a monthly recurring revenue and you end up making yourself more of an ingrained partnership that you can expand and you can scale your company with these companies, right? So you're now part of the solution. It's no longer, you're not, your candidates aren't the solution anymore. It's your recruiting service at that point. So yeah, that's a perfect example. Loved it.
I love that.
That's funny.
The joys of GovCon.
GovCon, man. It's like that space is interesting, man. It's like if you got it, and right now it's hot because if you're following the money, where's all the funding going? Where's all the jobs being created? Guess what? It's in Gov, and it's like that's where it's at. And AI, those two places where the funding's going. And it's all the money.
It's the funny thing when Web3 was hot, we were looking at like, let's leave GovCon, and then Web3 died down. And like GovCon's just like, all right, well, they're talking about the economy going downhill, and guess what stays funded on 5-year contracts?
Government. Exactly. I mean, Ben, you're hitting the nail on the head, right? Like I talk to recruiters daily and they're like, well, I'm working in Scala or I'm working in Golang. I'm working in AI or computer vision and autonomous driving and all this stuff. And I'm like, guys, like your industry is dying right now. And if you don't adapt, you're not going to feed your family. So adapt, figure it out, move on, find another market, validate that market, and hopefully find a market that's going to grow long term. Like you don't want to just keep jumping, but I've changed markets like 5 times and I have no problems with it because I just do it really well.
Well, I think it's like, I do believe in like niching down, but do you think that people niche down so much that it becomes their identity and that's why they can't make a move?
That's exactly it. They're afraid of the failure a lot of the times. It's also just the inability to do market research. Again, we go back to the example I gave earlier, which is, hey, you're in a bigger company. When we were at Cybercoders, I'll give you this example. When we were at Cybercoders, I was told go after Java, go after or Android or mobile engineers, and like .NET or something like that. It was like pick 3 spaces in the tech and the software engineering side and go after it. And I did, and it was great, and it worked fantastically. My first year, like I said, I did about 5 or 600K, and it was awesome. My big year at Cybercoders, my 700K year at Cybercoders, I said, screw all that. I focused on finding a market that was getting funding, and this is from my mentor. My mentor at the time basically was like, stop going after regular roles, like follow the money and look at where the money's going and what they're trying to do, and then go. So I found that there was like 1,300 advertising tech companies in the United States. And all of them were getting like $10 to $50 million in funding rounds, trying to beat Pubmatic, OpenX, and I can't remember the other one that was in the time. So I looked at that and I was like, what are they trying to do? All these companies are trying to figure out programmatic. Didn't know what programmatic was, had no clue, but I knew there was like a big market there. And so I learned, developed, understood, went to market, called a bunch of product managers at those companies to get an understanding what programmatic does. And I ended up getting this really great candidate from Pubmatic that was a VP from Pubmatic. I got another candidate that was a director at OpenX. And then I had these great, I had a senior product manager from one of the other companies, right? And so I had 3 candidates from all different variations of seniority. And I was able to go to market and say, hey, like, I've got, these candidates from the companies that you're trying to beat. Do you want to take a look at them? And it was like, yeah, like, and it was easy. I got like a 50% reply rate, and that quarter I did like 385 in billing, and it was like insane, right? It was an insane quarter. And it was like tapping into FOMO and tapping into what's hot. It wasn't hard. I didn't feel like I was jumping from position to position. I did mushroom those accounts, right? I would go in as product, I'd find software engineering roles, I'd tap into those. And it was great. That's how you do it though. Like you gotta follow the money, you gotta adjust. And I think a lot of people are scared because they've found their identity, like you said, or found their success in that, and they haven't learned to do market research. And then the caveat to that is, um, if I trendsetted at the company that I was at Cybercoders, and so everybody started doing ad tech, and then that's the funny part is that everybody kind of just follows along. You need to be the trendsetter. You need to find it before everyone else does, and watch it. Listen to the news. What's going on? Where's the money going? Follow that stuff, because if you're following whatever the market's doing, you're going to be left behind, or you're climbing uphill. You want to be the first to get to that gold mine so you can claim your stake. And then you can be there longer term. You're not just jumping around.
Awesome. And real quick, I'm going to ask you an action question. So when you talk about you found these great candidates and you MPC them, like what is a powerful MPC email or MPC message that gets responses?
Great question. So like I mentioned before, FOMO is a big thing for me. So if I can find FOMO, I'm like on it. I'm just like, I don't care what it is. I did the Web3 thing when it first was coming out in 2016 or 17. I did AI for a little while, right? So if I can find FOMO, I'm a tap into that FOMO. But to answer that question, I think now when you're coming into a more established market, it's all about understanding before and after states. So there's a really great course on Digital Marketer called the Avatar Canvas. I'll put a link in it. I'll send it over to you. But Digital Marketer is ran by a guy named Ryan Dice. Amazing courses on there on marketing, and it's just a deep Rolodex of information. And I've been a member of that for the last 5 years, I think. So their before and after, their avatar canvas is really cool because they talk about you finding the before state and the after state of your target market. And you really niche it down. You create this, like, you literally create a canvas of a person. You create a persona, an avatar, and you might have like several avatars for your particular field. Each one of those avatars has very different needs, have very different wants, have very different desires, or feeling different pains. All these things are happening. And so when you create that before and after state, your messaging becomes so much better, and it becomes highly contextualized, and you have better identifiers, right? So my messaging, now that we've delved into this and we've trained on it, is all about really finding what your candidates, if you're doing product-based marketing, what your candidates and how they are taking and transitioning their particular demographic or firmographic from this like terrible before state and moving them into this ideal after state. And then all we do is create our messaging around their after state, right? The before state helps us identify and be able to say, okay, you're dealing with this problem. And then all our messaging kind of comes in the conversation as if you were already part of it, right? So a quick example in the ad tech space that I'm talking about, it's like, hey John, at the end of the day, we have these ad tech is dealing with a lot of funding in the product and into programmatic advertising. I have candidates coming out of, or I noticed that your company hasn't put a programmatic offering up. Are you interested in looking at candidates coming out of PubMatic? And is that something that's looking at like in your future production or whatever, in your future product lines or releases, right? So That's a really quick message that's getting them from a specific state to an alternate state, which is, I'm not even talking about the candidate right now because I don't even know if they have a position open for that candidate. But if I have an idea that they're going to be, if I now know that they got funding for programmatic offerings, now I can come at them and be very ahead of the curve and say, I've got a candidate from programmatic, from OpenX. They have this experience, this experience, this experience, doing this with this company at your same stage, and had helped them get to this next stage, right? Which is that ideal state. So that taps into a better emotional state to your hiring manager, that lets them know that you understand their problem and what they're trying to get to, what their aim is with this type of position. So in an accounting world, you might have an MPC, or might have a great candidate coming from, like, again, from a Series C startup that had Big Four experience, and that Series C startup, like, they were there from Series A. So you might want to go find Series B, Series A companies that might be able to utilize this person because they have very specific experience, and then get them into a better title or better position with a better pay at those companies, and say, like, this person has helped grow companies and grow the financial dealings of whatever on their FP&A and their accounting teams, to get them to a Series C. They were integral parts in their funding rounds or whatever it is, because now you're talking about those pains and that they're dealing with, and that aspirational state of where they're going to go with this type of candidate. So it's really just about just finding those points instead of just listing off experience. They've got, or listing off like the check mark stuff, like they come from, Harvard or wherever, right? At the end of the day, like, is that, again, does that help them? Do you know if that's your, like, you got to figure that out. Like, you talk about stuff that matters to the hiring manager, is all I'm saying.
Well, okay. What I'm understanding is really understand, talk about stuff that matters, where the companies want to go, but also you have to understand your market.
Yeah, 1000%.
To do these,
if you don't understand your market, you probably shouldn't be in the market. Like, that's like, it's like a contractor coming to your house and being like, oh, like, you need air conditioning. Great. Can you install it? Yeah, I can install it, but let me go look up there. Oh, what are these things? Oh, those are our vents. Like, you wouldn't trust him, right? You wouldn't trust that person to come in and do your air conditioning for you, right? So, like, why? So how are you going to go to market without understanding, like, the moving parts of what it is that your candidates do? And honestly, your candidates actually tell you all that stuff. So, like, I'm a big believer, if you don't know, call the ideal candidate that would look good for your type of client, and have those conversations. What did you do? Ask better questions. What did you do before, or what was it like before you jumped on board? And what was it like after you jumped on board? What kind of things was your manager focused on when you jumped in the company? And what are they now focused on after that you're here? Like, how's their job been better? Like, what's your team like now that you're there? Right? Because now they'll tell you the transformational state. They tell you that transformation. And that's what you're selling, as a transformation.
Well, and that, okay, now we're going even deeper on this. So we're writing better emails, understanding the market. And now you're also saying that we need to do a bit of a deeper dive on candidates, to be able to understand that, ask good questions.
Yeah. Like, and in your intake calls, have better questions on your intake calls with your clients. Where are you at now? What are you hoping to get to? And don't ask, like, if you didn't do the research, like, you shouldn't have a call. Don't ask stuff about, like, what their product does, who their market is, like, none of that shit. Don't ask that. Like, be very specific. Like, okay, looking at your company, I see that you went through this round of funding. You're going through this. You guys hired this many people in the last 12 months. Like, so you guys are obviously trying to get something. I couldn't find anything on your press releases that told me what exactly your aspirational goals are for the next 5 years. What does that look like for you? And how do you fit in that? And how does this candidate fit into that? Now you're talking a different game. You're just like, you can tap into those things and like be a better salesperson at the end of the day.
So I'm listening to this and I feel like most of us recruiters were go, 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 go.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like we have to slow down a little to speed up.
What's the saying? Slow is fast, right? It's a military saying. I don't know. I can't remember. I read it somewhere. I think it was from Extreme Ownership or something like that. And it was like, slow is fast. If you take the time to understand the situation, the problem, what's happening, get your ducks in a row, and then all of a sudden your marketing, your messaging, all that stuff will change. And it sucks at first. I'm not going to even lie. Like, we just finished our cohort and it was 4 weeks for a reason. And the reason why was the first 2 weeks are all about understanding your market. If you don't understand your market, you can't create great messaging. That's the week 3. And week 4 was all about implementing automation and AI. And it's like, how do we use it? Right. And it's like, if you don't do that baseline thing, which is get the full perspective of your target market, and it's literally in every business book, like it's business 101, which is like why it's like so important to me. And like, it's so important for me to tell this to recruiters is like, you don't suck. Your process does. And your process sucks because you didn't do the work up front to understand your market. And if you don't understand your market, you can't market to them effectively. You, in a hot market, you could probably you could jump in and then, send a 2-paged email and it'd still get a response. It's just not going to get a very good response. You might have very good conversion, but you'll get one, right? And that one might be all you need. So I don't know.
No, I absolutely love that. Like I said, it's, you know, slowing down, better emails, understanding, like asking better questions. I think that's
Yeah.
one of the biggest things. Like as us recruiters, we are known for asking questions. And I always believe like asking better questions is always something like I feel like I can always learn how to do better.
Yeah. One of my old boss at Cybercoders, he instilled into me, like, you're Batman. You're a detective. Like, you need to just figure it out and like always be curious. And so if you're not curious, and you're just kind of going through the motions, that's when you fail. And I found that to be true. Is like, every time I go through the motions, if I'm just like doing stuff and I'm not curious about it, then I end up like having low billing years or billing quarters or whatever.
So before we make a shift to the next part of the podcast, is there anything else that you'd want to share about business development, marketing?
And not right now. I mean, I think like if we wanted to dive deeper, there's like, I have topics on topics on topics that we could talk into, but I think that's a good starting point if people wanted to start like learning anything. It's just like really just understanding your market, get really deep validation, and like get to know exactly what you're going to do before you go after, a role or a position or whatever it is. Like, you want to really be able to tap into what the pains and whatever aspirations uh the target market is. And that's including your candidates too. So like if you're talking to your candidates, you can have can have better candidate marketing too if you do that, right? So I think those are the big things.
So it's a consistent theme that every single top biller that has been on the podcast, every single top biller that I know and have been friends with, it's something that they don't talk about, but it's there. And it's mindset.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it's self-belief, like getting past your own self. But, with you being a top biller for well over a decade, what's your thoughts on mindset in the recruiting chair?
Oh man. Mindset. I'm big on mindset. Like if you don't have the right mindset going into this, like I said, that curiosity mindset is a big thing for me, right? So if I'm not curious about it, I'm probably not going to do well. I'm not excited about it. I'm probably not going to do well. So you got to get amped up about it. And so whatever industry you do want to focus on, make sure that's something that you're interested in and that you can delve in and really find some meat there. But really, like, if you even go back further, mindset really is important. Like that belief system that you have, about your ability and your ability to do things is really big. Um, as a child, you go through trauma and you go through things in your life that affect kind of who you are today. And, you have to deal with those things. And I think, there's certain levels of trauma that are healthy and they're actually good. And I think there was a study done, can't remember exactly where it was, but that top producers usually have some sort of childhood trauma that they're dealing with, and they're using that as kind of like an energy to push themselves. Now, that can go, both ways. But the idea was like, it's not crazy trauma. Like, I'm not saying like, I mean, there are people who deal with crazy trauma that are also producers. I'm saying like that it doesn't have to be crazy trauma for you to go through it and like to to tap into it. It can just be like the trauma of, you know, losing to your brother all the time and having that like anger and like frustration and pain. It could be the trauma of like you not having the attention of your father or your mother, right? And using that to basically be like, hey, like I'm going to, do stuff that's going to impress them, or that I could say I'm proud of. So like it doesn't have to be like deep trauma. It can be, fairly normalized trauma. Um and just having that belief that you can get past it. And I think one of the things that Arnold just talked about like recently in his new documentary on Netflix, it was like he was talking about the trauma he had as a child and how like he just knew he wasn't kind of meant to be there, and he used that as a propelling force. That competition between him and his brother was the thing that really propelled him to be this athlete, right? And you know, and people not believing in him. Rappers talk about it all the time where there's like their teacher or their guidance counselor was like, "Oh yeah, like you're never going to be anything." And they end up using that. Yeah, right? And just using that. And so like I'm like kind of a spiritual like hippy dippy kind of guy too. So like there's like this conflict with this belief system of like using this trauma and like trying to find peace. Um, and so like I have this thing where like I have this dichotomy of me, like where I have to find something that is either within myself that I failed at or whatever. Like that's the best way is like, oh, like I'm gonna compete against myself or find an enemy, right? Or like an adversary. A good adversary is like the best thing. Like it just makes me salivate to like have a good adversary. I want to have a good adversary. So, having a good adversary is another part of that too. So, like I said, it's all about that competitiveness mindset where you're just like having to win. You want to win. If you're like, oh, I'm just doing this because I just like, want to help people. Yeah, that's great. Find your win. Like find the why you need to win, and then you can help better. So,
I think most people need to take like, either they know it or that you have to go back and remember.
yes. Do some deep work, man. I deep work's huge. I did a lot of deep work. In my 20s and 30s, like it was all about just understanding who I am and what I want to do and what trauma I was dealing with. And is it like is the pain that can I use that pain? Can I use the frustration? Can I use it in a positive direction? If you can use it, like if it's powerful. And obviously like the good part of that too is like I want to use the good energy as well. But I don't know, like driving force is when you're about to lose or if you've lost. Like if you've ever been pushed, like put on in a corner and had to defend yourself, like there's nothing there's I don't know another energy that like you could tap into of that feeling like I never want to be there again. I never like when I was selling my car, I was like, I'm never gonna be broke again. It's never gonna happen. And I was broke again a couple times in my life, but like, just bad money management. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to be broke again. So better money management. So I had to prove something myself. So it's like, there's all that stuff.
I mean, I think it could be like a whole different podcast episode about like
Yeah.
pulling yourself back to those memories after you get to a place of what I would say comfortability.
God, get out of comfortable. Get out of your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is your worst enemy in sales. Like if you want to just go live on a farm and like, live off the land, comfort zone's fantastic. But if you want to go and be a good recruiter or a salesperson, you need to put, my friend put it, there should always be a tack on your ass. And I always love that because you should never be able to sit down. You should never be able to sit down and relax. Like if as soon as you do that, you are toast.
Too bad
Toast.
too bad I can't name this episode "Tack on Your Ass."
Tack on your ass.
So before we, you kind of mentioned early on in mindset and also early on in the podcast about, having a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, has that been good or bad for you, or a combination of both?
Yeah, it's good. And it's also bad. Yeah, it's a combination of both. I think if like the chip gets out of hand, like if that's all you focus on, then yeah, it's bad. And I'm neurodivergent. I have ADHD really bad. So once I focus on something, it can get really bad. I become a little obsessive about it. So I
And
try yeah, go ahead.
when I say chip on your shoulder, are you talking about an actual chip on your shoulder? And when I think of chip on the shoulder, I think of like egotistical,
Yeah.
or are you talking about just the confidence of you understanding of what you can bring to the table and what
Both.
you've brought to the table?
I mean, both. Like where like the chip on your shoulder of like people like underestimating your ability. I think that's one of my biggest chips is being like, oh, you don't think I could do that? Oh, you don't think this can win? Like I'm like, and so like I don't think I'm smarter than anyone because I'm not. I think I'm a pretty intelligent guy, but I'm not like, oh, I'm like leagues ahead of people. I just think I have a different mind. I have a different experience. I have a different thing to bring to the table. And when when I started at like, certain firms, I wanted like I came in letting them know like I want to experiment. I want a place where I can play with these ideas freely. And yes, like if they start to fail or if it doesn't get anywhere, we'll adjust. But I wanna have that. And every single time the owner just wanted my billing and they'd be like, yeah, we could do that. Yeah, we're gonna do that in like 6 months. And then like 6 months come around, I'm like, all right, let's it's TikTok, like it's up. Well, I didn't promise that, and so it's like, oh my God. Okay, so that became and it became one of those things because like they're just following whatever was working, right? And whatever they're doing is the same. And I just believe there's better ways to do it. An example of that like was productizing certain or solution marketing specific fields that had high turnover, like sales, um uh in the time of like mortgage industry was on fire in 2021 2022 like but that space is like known for being very transactional. That space is also known for people just like leaving really quick, having terrible companies that just don't treat their people right. So it's really hard to identify certain things, and there were like literally anyone could open up a mortgage industry at the time or mortgage company at the time. So it's like, how do you validate? So I was like, why are like there's all these people billing, you know, $400,000 in the quarter, and then none of it actualizes. And I was like, there's a problem there, right? Because like if you're doing this and all your candidates fall off, or the company doesn't want to pay, or you're constantly doing, backfills, then like there's a problem. We need to create a better solution. I'm not saying that we don't go after that market. Just do a better solution. Do it in a better way. So when I left my little startup organization, I was like, chip on my shoulder. I'm going to show you it works. And so all I did was I went after mortgage companies with a product or a solution. And I was like, hey, we've got, great candidates, and we could take out the pain of like dealing with this turnover. Let's go and do something better than other recruiting firms are going to do for you, we have a flat fee plus a bonus, and no guarantee. And they loved it. Loved it. One client we did for 3-month contract. It was like 85 or $75,000 we made from that one client, and it was light work. I mean, Ben, when I say light work, I was spending maybe an hour a day on that client, an hour, right? And it was just talking to candidates, hey, pass them through, and the candidates loved it, the clients loved it, no problem, right? So that's like what I mean is like, if you have something that's like bugging you about the space, you want to change it, use it, use that pain, use that chip, that anger that's there, like use it, but don't get obsessive about it, because then it becomes a psychological issue.
Well, and also real quick, I definitely picked out of there. You also, once again, found another FOMO market and capitalized on it.
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. If I could find FOMO, like right now, if I was producing, I'd be all over the AI space. I'd be all over chat AI. I'd be like, but I would do it differently, because like, I'd probably create a solution around that. And I'd say like, I'd probably create an AI agency is what I'd probably do, which is, I think we're going to end up leaning towards on Recruiting with Dynamite, is like creating some sort of AI agency for recruiters.
All right. So, and one more thing, like on the mindset focus before we move on. I know this is a struggle that, I personally have dealt with. I know it's a struggle that a lot of other recruiters have dealt with, but it's limiting beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
keeping you from being the best recruiter you could possibly be.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the people that you've talked with, the things that you've dealt with, what's your advice on dealing with limiting beliefs in the recruiting sector?
You are not who you think you are, but you are who you think you are. So what I mean by that is, you are not giving yourself, a lot of people aren't giving themselves enough credit for whatever their abilities are, and their ability to get through adversity and push through, the comfort of whatever they're comfortable in. But at the same time, if you can't get past the thought of it, and you just continue to think that you are less than, then you're never going to get past it, right? So you have to find ways to find success, or find your woo, as my old manager would put it, because it's not helping you. I was talking to one of my clients, and they were telling me about how they wanted to be more like this other person, this other biller, and that they just didn't feel like they had the ability to do it, and they had some trauma to work through. And I was like, and that this person, that was what it was, is this person that they had looked at, this person didn't have those things. And I had to stop them, and I'd say, like, at the end of the day, you're missing kind of a key point, is that they do have those things. They just have worked through them. They don't let those things stop them from, those traumas, those beliefs stop them from continuing. And they have this faith. And I think faith is such a big thing for me. Like, I'm not a super religious person. I'm more, I guess I would say I'm more agnostic than anything. But like, I do have faith. I have faith in that, like, things will work out and will always work out in my best favor. And one of the things, like, I played around with is that, like, if you watch like Marvel right now and Loki and all that stuff, it's like, oh, there's multi dimensions and everything like that. And we're proving more and more that we live in a multi-dimensional world where there's a lot of different things that are happening. There was a study done where they didn't observe an electron and where it would land. As soon as they observed it, it had a different course, right? So like, you're literally, just observing something and thinking about something actually changes matter, right? Which is crazy, like crazy to think about. And so if you have this belief system in your head that's negative and like looking down, you're creating that reality. You literally are creating that reality. But instead, like the way I kind of push through it is I think, you know what? I live in the universe where everything is my best possible option. Everything that I do is the best core, or everything that happens to me is because it's leading me to the best possible outcome, period. And like, I just think I like, even when like shit hits the fan, things aren't going well, the economy's going to hell, like I rack up a bunch of debt or like whatever it might be, right? Whatever's happening that I hate or I'm hurting from, I just think, you know what? That needed to happen in order for me to have my best outcome. And so it's not about like these things don't affect me. They totally do. It's just you're just getting past it with a higher version of yourself and a higher version of thought. So limiting belief that's how I get past my limiting beliefs, is just being like, it's gonna work out. It's all gonna work out. I don't really care. It doesn't matter that this happened.
Definitely great advice. Before we jump over to the quickfire section, is there anything else you'd love to share on any of the topic that we've been covering?
So much, but no, I think this is good enough. Like I feel like I barely touch the surface some of the times. Like I try in these podcasts to like give you as much in detail as I possibly can, but I don't want to like confuse the listener too much.
Awesome. So for the quick fire part of this podcast, if you're a recruiter that's just starting off in 2023, what advice would you give them?
What advice would I give a recruiter in 2023?
That's just starting out brand new,
just got out of college, or just got out of whatever other industry. I would say, find companies find companies or mentors that you can follow and build your business around, and that are going to teach you more than just butts in seats and placements. So, I was lucky enough to have a really great boss at Cybercoders. And once I learned from him as much as I could, I I just constantly sought out mentorship from other top billers and other people within the company. And then I ended up finding my mentor who today is still my mentor. Because she's just someone that I admire so much. We have the same ethos. Like we just were super aligned on so many levels. And she does like 2 million a year, like consistently. Like she's done it for the last like 12 years, right? So, she's somebody that I really, really like just tap into as much as I possibly can. And we've become really great friends because of it. And I've learned so much from her. And then I surround myself with other people like her, in different industries. So don't just stick to like the recruiting space. Find mentors in marketing, find mentors in sales, find mentors in business in general, because like you learn a lot from those people, and you can like try and adapt that mentorship to your business models.
I love that. And for recruiters that have been in the game for a while, whether it's 5 to 25 years, what advice would you give them to be successful?
Be adaptable. I think a lot of recruiters that are in the space right now that have been here very much focus on what worked and don't really like look at where the market's changing and things that are happening in the space. For example, a lot of tech recruiters I know that have been in tech for years are struggling, and they just refuse to pivot out and pivot to something that's different. And I think that's going to be like their undoing. Because I just don't see tech in the way it was continuing that path, or like software engineering as a specific example. Like software engineering is changing. It's not going away, but it's changing from like this web development, application platform development world to more AI function, and like deep learning. Google just came out with like a quantum computer. Like, dude, like this stuff is going in the next 5 years. We're like, you're not gonna even have applications anymore, man. Like you're just gonna have like things on your finger, like and touches in your eye, and like your contact lenses are gonna tell you where to go. Like you're gonna be like, and like in a dystopian Black Mirror world, like it could go wrong, but tech is just not the same anymore. And so the value and like the same type of software engineers that you're trying to pitch, like that's now a commodity at this point. Not like good software engineers, lead engineers are always gonna have a need, but like the
All the
regular
stuff that get written by ChatGPT.
pretty much. I mean, like if you look at LLM, like and what code GPT is doing, like it's the writing's on the wall. Like we're we're coming to parity with AI pretty soon, and you need to adapt. You need to figure that out.
Well, since we're on the topic of AI, what's your thoughts on the impact of AI on the future of recruiting?
You had another guest that said it perfectly. Like it's scary, but it's also exciting. And I choose the exciting path. I'd rather the exciting path than the scary path. So I'm excited about it, right? Because it's something that's like that I'm finding as being such a valuable assistant in everything I do. And that's the way I look at it. And it's just like it's an assistant. And it allows me to be a superhuman versus and a team of one. I really do think you're going to start seeing, the one person, $30 million recruiting organization. I think you're going to see that fairly soon. I think there's a chance that there's going to be the first one person $1 billion company, right? And it's a very, very, very likely thing to happen. It's just a matter of like how you position it. So I love it. I think it's going to be exciting.
Awesome. Has there been a book that has had a huge impact on your career?
Yeah, two specifically. Relentless by Tim Grover. Uh, it really tapped into like the mentality that I have. A lot of times I thought I was weird for having this like hyper competitive, obsessive mentality. And it really validated from like an athlete's perspective. I don't know if you know are you familiar with Tim Grover?
That's the book that was written on Kobe Bryant, right?
Kobe and Michael Jordan. Tim Grover
Yeah.
was Michael Jordan to Kobe Bryant's personal trainer. And he writes about how like these two people were, or they're the top of their game, and they play with a chip on their shoulder. They play with like the trauma that they had. They play with the fact that they expect perfection, and like they're in light words, they're assholes, right? To most people, when they're playing against them, they hate them because they're like, this guy's just talking mess, and you know, he's like overly cocky, and they just have this like crazy belief about what they can do, and they just believe that they're better than everyone else in that position, right? But when you get them off the court, guess what? They're the nicest, kindest, fun people to be around, and that's a part of it. It's just playing the game, like playing the game in this relentless, like winner take all type of mentality. Because like I want to be the best, and that perfection does not exist. That you're competing against yourself all the time. Like you're beating yourself. Like I need to beat that record for myself. It's actually less about the other opponent or anybody else. But if you can find an adversary, it's a really big motivator. And like Michael Jordan said in his Last Dance, like, yeah, I took it personally, and it's like, once you take something personally, it's like, and it could be the dumbest thing. Like it could just be like, oh, they like looked at me wrong and I took it personally. And like, if you could do that and like find your little thing, it'll be okay. But again, you got to let that go right away. It can't stick and linger for too long. Like you can't let it ruin your relationships with people and all that stuff. So, I loved Relentless. And then the other one is Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference. Those two books, man, like Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss has a really great masterclass on it too. So if you do the Chris Voss book, watch them, go do the masterclass as well. And it's just the art of negotiation, the wordsmithing, and understanding, like, again, you're getting a perspective of people, and you're helping guide people to a solution versus, just, you know, putting whatever you think is right. It's such a powerful technique. So those two have helped me build a ton in my business.
Well, and that kind of goes into my next question. Like, has there been something that has really helped you or something that you could point to that has really helped and contributed to your personal success?
Yeah. Um, my past experiences definitely are a big part of that. Like, again, talking into, I don't want to go into like my traumas and my problems, but like, yeah, like those pains, those frustrations have been a big driver for me. Um, and always trying to constantly prove that to myself that, like, I've got what it takes to do what I need to do. And, again, improving upon what I know I can do. My wife has been a big part of that. Uh, when she and I were dating, like, I really wanted to show her that, I wasn't just some normal guy. And I wanted to really be somewhere with her, and she was a part of that. And now my child, my daughter, is everything to me. So, those two people in my life mean literally more than anything. So if, like, anybody wants to come after that, like, I've got to beat that. Like, if they're trying to steal my cake, so I can't feed my kid and I can't feed my wife, like, I have a problem with that. I'm gonna take it personally. So, yeah, so it's a lot of that stuff. So it's like I tap into whatever competition I can create. Um, it sounds it sounds psychotic. I say it out loud, but it's the truth. Like, I'm being, like, dead ass on everything. It's like, it is. I Those two right there, like, I will do anything to make sure that I'll torch the world, right? Like, it's just, I will scorch earth just to ensure that they're good. But I'll do it in the most morally correct way possible.
Love that. Well, and that's going to go into my next question that I have. You've had a lot of experiences, ups and downs with your career, many years being a big biller. Like, if you could sit down, have a cup of coffee with yourself when you just started your career, what advice would you tell yourself?
Stop chasing the money, uh, and focus on the process. So have fun with it. And that would be, like, the big thing, is just like, don't chase the money, have fun with the process. Like, play more, literally play more. Cause I now I'm in such a mode of play. And I think if you don't take it seriously, and you're not like, oh, I'm just, like, so focused on billing, like, it's just, it becomes playful. And when you're playing, it's like, it's enjoyable. Like, every one of these podcasts I get on, every single one of my cohorts that I do, any of my one-on-ones now, like, it's not a pain. It's not frustrating. It's not something I'm, like, dreading to do. I'm, like, amped about it. I'm energized. I'm excited because it's all play. And so just stop worrying about the money. The money will come.
Well, Will, before I let you go, is there anything else that you would love to share with the listeners?
Oh man, so much. Yeah, I think just, like, that last topic, I think, is a big one. I don't really talk about it as much as I should, and just, like, having fun with what you're doing. If you're learning something new, you're going to be bad at it. It's going to suck. And if you're trying to, like, learn how to do marketing and learn how to do sales in outside of the perspective of just being a recruiter, You got to have fun with it, and you actually will help. It'll help your brain and your career and your follow through, even if you're having fun with it. That's why I like the adversary part of it, because it makes it competitive, and it's kind of like using that energy to like play. Um, so yeah, I just have fun. I play. Play as much as you can. Find your play.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Elite Recruiter podcast. For the listeners, this has been a powerful episode. So excited that you got to hear this. And, if you're listening to this, I really hope you crush it. And let's crush it together, guys.
Definitely.